So we need the root. Right, the root. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The root base.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And from there grows your tree, let's say.
Absolutely.
Always
Yeah.
the root.
We were doing some exercises, just doing rhythmic stuff with just one note, you know, just the root of the chord, you know.
Exactly.
And, you know.
That's the bottom line.
Exactly.
Right? That is the bottom note and the bottom line often.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So it's no wonder that the heaviest people, especially like the, in some cases the Hispanic African people, right, work from the root, the musical root. So all they need to cook and fly and transcend.
Absolutely.
It's a good strong root. It's rhythmo. You're gonna have the rhythmo. If you can have a tone with a rhythmo, then it's gone. Then they have a center. So you have two centers: a rhythmic center and then a tone center. And for the native people, that's great. It's not going all over the place. So it's not an exercise of what they can hear beyond the root, right? Because they're simple people, right?
Yeah.
But they're deep, simple and deep. Get that, people? They're simple and deep people.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Spoken.
Definitely.
Say by a native
Absolutely.
practitioner. So, any comments?
Yeah, it seemed like that, for whatever reason or reasons, was stronger and more together and more open than it's been. I mean, maybe not at all points previously, but it felt good. It felt really good.
We have to stick to the basics. If we're talking about meditative quality, it must be simple. It doesn't have to be. I mean, any classical piece could be considered meditative, relatively speaking. So, but not any classical piece can release what a more fundamental sound can do, right? Because we are here in the body wanting to be out of the body, actually, right? Comment earlier. That means we as a single point want to experience total intelligence, because we are born for that. When we go to sleep, might be the only time any of us get close to such a dimension of reality or the universe. We're talking about the universe, not just the unconscious universe, but the spiritual universe as well. So, comment there.
Yeah. Simplicity, fundamental seems the way to go. And like what you were saying, like even.
And it's training.
Right.
See, it's not training for intellectual advantage unless you have a gift, and so you go that way too.
Sure.
But it's training for depth of awareness. We're talking about depth psychology. You're dealing with the unconscious, right? And then maybe in some people's cases, that accesses the superconscious. The unconscious, primarily because in all the spiritual works they say you have to relax yourself and calm. So you have to have less consciousness. And then you have access to the big consciousness. Right? So how is that? We have the noise consciousness ordinarily, and then all of a sudden you get into less noise, and then you have deeper recognition. All the traditions, all the meditative traditions, all the contemplative and the shamanic traditions exercise the same process. Calm down, relax, and we go deep. You have to reach your bed, right, before you put your head on the pillow, and you have to put your head on the pillow with your blankets over you before you go deeper. And then when you go deeper, you're gone, and then you have to remember to come back. Right? And so you come back, and here you are, right, back to zero, back to noise again. But you want to have a more conscious approach to this noise, and be careful of what you identify with, what you ID, so as not to take that inside unnecessarily. Because there's too much noise out there, too much. So you have to filter it by having a focus on what it is that's real to you, and that would be, let's say, the spiritual center itself. Zero. Openness. Just openness. A straight line. Being open, humble. And that means to be receptive. How are you going to have anything coming in if you're not receptive to it? You shut off, because your noise is shutting you off, separating you from what it is, mentally and emotionally and physically and experientially. See, so we have to go void in order to get to the enlightenment condition or state. It's present. And you're not enjoying it as you do, or you can, in terms of like the bliss level of what that is.
Well, that's not really just don't think.
Sometimes it's no thinking, but that's not deep enough. It's no mind, better than no thinking. Because you can be without thought, you can be in that state. You can be less than a thought, but you're still your self-mind. You got to get rid of the self-mind to go to the true mind. And that true mind then becomes a no mind, because no mind as a negative, it's the affirming negative. So when we say true mind, we mean the affirming of the negative. The affirmative. So the negative is not negative. So really we're saying no to mean without obstruction relative to whatever we're saying no about. It's about your thought, yourself, your memories, all of that. All the karmic lower worlds. Right? The worlds below the fifth plane. All of that has to go.
So you have to say no, just accentuate the negative instead of the positive.
It sounds like that to you, right? It sounds like negative to the negative, but it sounds positive to the positive. Because ultimately, in a higher level, there's no negative whatsoever. So, it's relative to being in the lower planes of cause and effect, gravity and levity. Is a word. The negative is a concept word, and it has negative connotations relative to darkness, heaviness, gravity, fear, all the darker emotions. Darker emotion, pain. But you get to a point where there's no pain. Even if your body's having pain, you don't have to be in that pain. And so we have to call in the understanding then of the masters and the saints who suffered excruciatingly painful conditions, but they had no pain. So then there's a different body that is being, let's say, activated and operational at that point. And it's not the physical body, because your human body consists of more bodies than their numbers for, really, all bodies. It's a matter of accessing what you need. Accessing who you really are as distinct from your self-limiting, let's say, mindset and programming, and so on.
Possible to articulate and to understand is the fact of the physical body being limitation, and the physical body being completion.
Well, the physical body is, or appears to be, limitation. So it is limited to the beholder, and then unlimited to the other beholder, depending on what one knows the physical body to be, relative to its connection with the universe. So we don't have any connection with the universe. The physical body is just an ordinary physical body, and it doesn't matter. Nothing else to say about it. So the
Except it falls away. Physical body's going to fall away.
Well, that's because it doesn't exist. It never did and never will exist. So therefore it falls away, it disappears on you.
Well, I mean, everything, like I just lost a tooth, so I mean,
your teeth are falling away.
Everything falls away,
Your whole body's falling away. Exactly. So that's the nature of the illusion of physical appearance. It's already going. You're already dying once you have your birth experience. But we know that. The idea is to capitalize on, let's say, the highest possible potential you have that you can realize before the body kicks out. Your time is up. We're really talking about time. So it's a time body. It's a body of time. And that's why I'm busy doing the books I'm doing, just to make sure that while I'm here experiencing my time, I finish these things and then I leave something of value for other people. I have records and all kinds of material items that represent what I was doing when I was breathing and in a physical body, but certainly not equal to it, but that doesn't matter. We do what we can do. But this is your time for enlightenment, training, and you want to capitalize on that as much as you can.
Um,
If you're wise.
in what form, if any, will you be sticking around after your dissolution?
No form in every form, but really no form. No form to speak of. Who wants a form? Isn't that the original problem? You got a form body? Right, so you don't want to form unless you know you have no choice.
You don't want it to become a ghost, you know.
Well,
walking
listen,
around.
I'm not even destined to be that.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about.
come up here and there's some rapping on the wall and little guitar sounds every once in a while.
I will find better things to do. Okay. Lord have mercy on this conversation. Evolution. We're talking about conscious evolution and then maybe unconscious evolution. When I first entered the military, I didn't have any connection with Yogananda Paramahamsa. I didn't have any connection with the masters or yogis that I was seeing in my dreams. I wasn't really ready for that. Now, of course, I can say that maybe prematurely because I come from spiritualist people. So the door about the spirits was always open to me. I had been in, the spiritual world in a certain way with my family. I was also a Roman Catholic by practice as a child. So I knew something about the angelic realms, and so there was an openness already there. But I wasn't really all that hip to the Hindus and the Easterners, right? I wasn't hip, in other words, I wasn't even hip when I was young to what my relatives were saying, that I was a Chinaman. They say, él es un chino, right? And that I was writing books for the Chinese. Obviously, they called it Chinese, but what they really meant was Tibetans. That is, students of that. See? And I said, they're way off base. No. Way, well, no way. Period. No way in the story, man. Couldn't happen. So where was that? See, I'm admitting my unconsciousness. And yet this is happening. See? So then that brings in another question. When was this set up? And how? If not before? And that's how the spiritualists see it. It's more about before that you don't know than what happens to you. How in the world did this person on 34th Street or 23rd Street in Manhattan, when the Karmapa made it, 16 Karmapa made his first showing here, how did they know to push me in there? I just came from a gig where everybody's loaded, right, with my guitar, happily walking down the street, ready to go to my place down in the Lower East Side. No way. There's no way. So we're talking about the unconscious, what you don't know that you've inherited, that's going to lead to what happens. So I admit, when I was young, I was blocking it all off. But I did have these breakthrough dreams that left me with evidence that I had done all this before, and that it was part of a hierarchy I was avoiding because I wasn't prepared to recognize it in full as of yet. And then when I started to look at it, then it opened up even more. And furthermore, several years later, when I got to the Army Band, all hell broke loose in terms of the spiritual. That's when I was visited by the Ekmasters. That's when I was being, in dreamland, taken to various kingdoms, worlds, dimensions, let's say. Call it what you want. They weren't terrestrial. You can't say I know beyond that what they were. They were the abodes of these other beings. Right? In the Eastern text, they are the abodes of the celestial beings. In the spiritualist background I had, it's all about the higher and good spirits, the wisdom spirits. Call it what you want. This is an intermediary dimension, physical dimension is intermediary. This is what I call purgatory here. Because you can purge or be purged here, or you can die and pay the price here, without knowing anything about the spiritual. And then you find out when you die that there was always a spiritual, you just weren't aware of it. What did you say? It is what?
elevating.
Yeah, how would you describe that?
You transcend your body.
And you feel that when you're playing?
Well, I feel that, and I also feel that when I'm meditating.
Oh, good. So this is very
It's
good.
like you lift up over the body, and that's a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wonderful feeling, actually, because you're transcending the body, or you're releasing the body, whatever, rather than the body releasing you. So I guess it's a race where everything in the body is going to fall away, or you're going to rise above the body again.
Well, you probably do it every night if you don't know it, right? And you probably do it often during the day, but you don't notice that either. Because it is such a factor of existence called multiple plane operation. Some people call it, well, you're having a dream, or you're going into reverie, or imagining. So it's all the same. It's all subtle body phenomena that is actually given to us to train, if we have the disposition to do that, to know, to help others by, if we choose to do that, depending on our willfulness or depending on our particular say, function. So if you have a function of being on the salvation, I guess you might say, boat to salvation, then you might be the kind of, or anybody might be the kind of person who wants to save other people from themselves. Like, I guess a version of the Buddhist Bodhisattva model. We do want, there's something in us, the heart wants to help people. We don't make a life of it. We have the impulse now and then, and we recognize it's good to be there, but it's not our nature to be really working on that and sending grace to other people, unless that's our training or that's our function.
So does it matter in terms of function what we want, or do we get
Sometimes it all matters to them on that. Everything matters on that, and then sometimes, as in the case of my confessed dodo-ness, then I had to get whacked over the head to realize what was going on. I avoided the spiritual like the plague. I thought my aunts and the elders were like crazy, kooky. And they had the last laugh when I came back saying, okay, all right, I give up already, let's go, what's up? Okay? I'm here now, I'm ready to do the work. And the work was to shut up, sit down, smell the roses of spirit. That was it.
What was the break point for you where you realized that this is something that you were going to do?
The break point? I'm
Yeah.
not sure. There may have been different break points, if you want to call them break points. There may have been different ones. Be more specific.
Was there a moment or a thought
You mean like a catastrophic moment?
where you not only resigned yourself to
Well, yeah, I wasn't only thinking about that
Yeah.
and knowing it was going to happen, but I had no choice.
yeah,
That I would like to say at this point in my memory, I would say that was around 1970, right, when I was doing the hair show up in Toronto. And we were, the hair band, or members of it, were in a restaurant, and I was disturbed in a way in the company of the people, not by them, but by something, I wasn't sure. So I left their company, and I walked out on the street. The street, to be exact, was Bloor Street in Toronto. And I walked out there, and I was in a very strange mood. Not sure what was going on. I think it was early evening. We were getting ready to go to the show. So this was in December, so it was before showtime. And all of a sudden, I hear this strange noise across the street, but I wasn't sure what that was exactly. And so I walked over carefully and apprehensively because I'm saying, what's pulling me? What's going on here? I'm with my people in there, the musicians, and then all of a sudden I'm being pulled and I'm rolling with it. When I got to the other side of the street, it was by this building, and there was a snow mound, because this is in the winter, December. snow mound, and then I saw on the snow mound a body facing upward. It was a body right on the top, you know. Right? I saw the red hair draped over the snow, and I walked up to it very, very apprehensively. I was shocked. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what happened. See, so I went up to the body, and there was a woman, red hair, red blood on her face, it was coming out of her nose or her mouth. And she was dead. She had jumped 14 stories and landed right there while I was there. Yeah. And then the story begins there, but I don't have time to go into it. But that was a crisis point for me when I called my relatives at that point, and I said, "This is spooky," and they said, "Yeah, we know that. We've been trying to tell you that. You got to come back to the work. You got to come back to helping people." And then a bizarre thing that I found out later, that friends of mine were talking to this woman and said to go to Toronto and talk to Tsiji Munoz. And there we met. But that's not the end of it. To be continued.